I'm Jane Mulkerrins. I'm a British journalist based in New York. I write for British newspapers and magazines. Do a little bit of radio sometimes. Basically, I run around America talking to interesting people.
And how do you define achievement?
I was thinking about this on the way over here. I think I would define it as setting oneself difficult goals, potentially goals which you might not reach, but then attaining them and perhaps surpassing them, and performing in some way something you were unsure you might be able to. I was brought up to be very independent, and I wouldn't say necessarily free thinking. They definitely did encourage me to always have an opinion, but I think that had parameters. I was expected to work very hard at school. I was expected to do very well. I was expected to behave to a certain extent. I think they had certain expectations of my behaviour, which I didn't always comply with, but I did make up for them by fulfilling all the other expectations by doing well at school, so I could get away with more. And I think my parents liked the fact that I sometimes definitely disagreed with them and their ways of doing things and had my own mind, but I think they also found it quite difficult. The last 2 years that I lived at home were not very easy because I was really ready to leave. Not because we didn't get on, just because I was itching to leave and to do my own thing. And I'd always really wanted to go somewhere solo. The fact that I wanted to go travelling on my own at 18 was that I wanted to go on my own. It wasn't that I necessarily wanted to go with other people or do something organised. I wanted to be independent and do it myself. And coming here, I love the fact that I didn't really have a job to come to. I like the fact that I was just coming to test it all out on my own because, it'd been a long time coming to just strike out on my own and rely on myself.
So, what would you say is your greatest achievement so far?
I would say probably coming here and making it work. Yeah. Because I was really unsure of whether it would. I knew I'd be happy here. I mean, you spent some days here, it's an amazing town. I knew I'd have a great time. I had some friends here. I didn't think I'd be very lonely. But I think I was definitely unsure about whether I could make a go of it, whether I could just make enough money to survive, whether I could make a go of my work here, whether I'd meet enough people, get the contacts. I mean, I'd already done my job for 10 years in London and was very it was until the newspaper closed at least, I was in a good place. So coming here was literally just me going, just throwing it all in the air. So I did think, okay, this might be a really bad decision, and halfway across the Atlantic, I suddenly realised that I didn't know anyone or who to ask for anything. And I literally was starting all over again, which it should have occurred to me really before I was mid-flight, but that's when it occurred. After a few months when things started to pick up, I definitely did think, okay, it's starting to pay off. But I mean, I still have moments when I think, gosh, I'm very vulnerable here, discussing visa situations and things like that. There are times when you think, if something goes wrong, I don't have a huge safety net here. And that can make me feel very vulnerable, but it also makes me feel kind of alive, because it's a constant backing to make sure I can keep going and that I won't rest on my laurels. And that, I'm constantly conscious of the effort that I have to put in and the possibilities that are out there. I'd never had the courage to leave a job I really liked before. I think I'd always, and it goes back to trying to do the right thing. I was working in quite a competitive industry and feeling like if I just chucked it all away to go and risk it somewhere else, that would be irresponsible and foolish. And much as I like taking a risk, I try not to be irresponsible. But I think by sort of 2005 and 2006, the market was also getting so much smaller in London, and I didn't feel like if I left there were maybe that many job options. So I think that was the initial courage, was because I honestly felt there weren't that many options in London, that I wasn't losing out, I wasn't missing anything that would be taking me in a different direction. I think there was also a certain level of confidence that I felt like I'd done my job well in London for 10 years. I sort of thought, well, if I don't try now, I'll never know. I mean, I'd always had a job or a boyfriend who I didn't want to leave, and suddenly it was like, well, I don't have any responsibilities. And if I don't do it now, in my 30s, like, when am I going to do it?
Right.
And actually it terrified me, the idea of not ever having given it a try. Because I think I'd always feel that I was doing myself a disservice if I didn't give it a go.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's that negotiating and a situation that should be familiar but is so alien and with all these barriers to it that you haven't even realised. Getting a bank account, getting ID, getting all of those things.
Taxes.
Oh my god. And we're separated by this common language where people come, I'm always trying to explain it when people come and visit, but the language is a total red herring. So don't expect it to be anything like the UK. If you just imagine you're in India, and then you'll be good. I just kept going until I found someone who was a little bit more flexible. I mean, in a practical way to get an apartment. Emotionally, it's hard to deal with because I think it makes you start to question where you belong. Because, and deep down you think, well, what you're saying to me is I have no foothold here. I don't feel like I belong. And most of the time I just trot around feeling very happy and not worrying about those things. It made me think I need to do more to solidify, at least in a documentation sense, me being here, that there are practical steps. But it just also made me very angry because I thought there's one very, very narrow definition of how they define you being a person they want to lend money to or rent something out to, and I mean, I have all of those things, and it made me think, how does someone who doesn't speak English or someone who is on welfare and has small children and, how on earth do those people get what they need in life when authorities are so rigid?
What would you say to a person who is thinking about throwing it all up in the air and changing everything?
Oh God, always do it. Always. I mean, I think if there is a part of you that's even considering throwing it all up in the air, I think that, to me, it means that you're desperate for change. And I think you're never going to regret it because you just don't know where it's going to take you. I think the biggest rewards come from the biggest risks. And I think you learn so much about yourself and you get so many new skills from just changing your life in whatever way. I think, God, I mean, touch everything. We're going to live very long lives and healthy ones and, and achieve all the things we want to achieve. And I just think to do the one thing forever, or even to do it for more than 10 years, to be honest. Such a short attention span. But I think, it's a big world and you sort of owe it to yourself to see as much of it and do as much of it as possible.